This video contains a basic introduction of our rules and actions. So we'll go back into our asset management fields module that I created in the previous video. And I'm going to start, I'll go back into the asset list and we'll talk about rules. So here's a text field I'd created in the previous video called file information. To put it simply, when I type into this field, a bunch of things are happening in the background. And those things that are happening are determined by what we've set up that's associated with this field, whether it's rules, different parameters, different settings. And it won't read until you've completely finished the entire Blocworx course that you'll have a real appreciation for the kind of things that can be triggered just by changing the value in the field, or in the case of a text field, by hitting return on the field. So I'm going to go to edit mode and give you a very, very basic example. I'll create a new field and I will say example numeric. Let's move that to the top just for a bit of neatness. This is another standard text field. So I'm going to hover over and click parameters. Like I briefly touched on in the previous video, field parameters are things, they're basically settings for this field. Some of these settings are triggered when you hit return in the case of an input field. So for example, make this a numeric field. And let's say it's going to be set to 3 decimal places. And I'll just open it in a separate window. So now I'm going to start typing. Let's say, just type hello, and I hit return. It goes red. Why does it go red? Because that's not a numeric field. That's not a numeric value, so it doesn't like it. Let's go 43.9888. We'll just put in one other number there and hit return, and it brings down to 3 decimal places just like we had decided here. This activity that just occurred there is what we call an action. It's something that takes place as a result of a setting or rule that you've put on this field. And the entire way Blocworx works is based on the actions that are triggered after you've changed the value in a field. I'll give one more example. Let's say show this. We're going to create another field called show this, okay? I'm going to bring this up as well. So I'm going to show you another field parameter called conditional visibility. Now I'm just touching on this for an example. We'll go through these parameters in another in a separate part of the course. So this won't be part of this part of the curriculum. But what I'm doing here is I'm deciding I only want to show this field if the value of example numeric field is something specific. So I'll just quickly flick through without explaining in detail what I'm doing here. But what I am saying is I'm saying check example numeric field and show the field if it's equal 30.986. Now I'll go back to the front end. The field is hidden because I've set that setting. Now I'm going to just do a wrong one first. So we'll say 30.984, nothing. 30.985, nothing, 30.986, and there we are. Show this. 0.7, nothing, 0.6, show this. Again, an action was triggered as a result of this field activity and something that was related to it. So the purpose of explaining those two examples is just to show you in principle how actions work. Part of the actions is that you can set rules for a field. So I'm going to give a very basic example. Hover over and click rules. Our most basic rule that we have is cannot be empty. This is the equivalent of your required field in any form you might use. So now when I refresh, and first I'll just make the rule pass, hit return. However, let's delete all the values and press return. Oops. Press return. And we have the rule broken. You have empty or unselected fields in your form. Please make sure all required fields are fulfilled. That is again triggered as a result of the activity in this field, and that's a rule. So this video is basically just to give you an overview of how the actions and rules are triggered when you change a value in a field. We'll be getting more detail later on because sometimes the rules or actions don't get triggered until you hit return, and it's also possible to completely control this down at the bottom in manage field actions, but we're not going to look at that now because to look at this requires knowledge of everything in Blocworx. At the moment, we're just going to go with the default behavior. Thank you. Bye bye.